Hey, so today I thought that we would do something really, really fun. And this is going to be for entertainment and training purposes only. We are going to be evaluating and looking into one of Tyler Henry's live readings. Now, the reason why that I am doing this is not to push judgment onto him or anyone else at all. It's quite the opposite. It is because this show, Life from the Other Side with Tyler Henry, is freaking amazing. I have watched the show already and I was taking so many notes, and I was like, this is a perfect training tool for psychics and mediums who are developing their gifts, and also for those who are maybe interested in getting a reading, not even sure what to expect. Maybe you've had a reading before from a psychic medium and you're like, I don't even know if it's any good, because we're only comparing it to the readings that we see on TV from the Long Island Medium, maybe some Tyler Henry other shows where he is interviewing, other celebrities, and we don't know if what we have gotten is normal or not. So I absolutely love that Tyler has done this. I think that this has changed my mediumship and my confidence levels so much, to see so many things that I do in my readings that he does it as well. And it just really encompasses psychic and mediumship and exactly what it is and basically what to expect. So I really hope that you go forward with this with me, with not passing judgment, seeing it as beautiful and amazing and as awesome as it is. And maybe this can help you open up to your own gifts or make you realize and see that you actually have gifts yourself. So we're going to dive right into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically go through this reading together. All right. So it is on YouTube. The link is in the show notes if you want to follow along with me visually. If not, you could go ahead and just keep listening and you will have the same exact experience. So right now, they are going to introduce the celebrity that he is reading, and I am going to pause and stop, and it's going to be a fun time, and we're going to talk all about it. So here we go.
And that was special crushing it. This is Fortune Feedster. All right, Fortune, tell us who you brought with you today and how you know them. I brought.
All right, so right now, Tyler is starting to write down things. So if you don't know Tyler Henry, he has this thing where he scribbles in a notebook as he is trying to connect. So what it does is that it gives his logical mind something to do while he's connecting. This is a brilliant thing to do if you have trouble with, your intuitive mind versus like your ego mind. So it gives it something to do so that you're able to truly and fully connect. If you are someone, or if you've had a reading done where someone closes their eyes, it's kind of the same thing. He's trying to hear better. So oftentimes in my readings, what I do is I'll look over to the left, I'll look over to the right, and I'll just kind of stare. That is Tyler's way of doing things. Now, this is totally legit right now. He's already in the zone. He has already said, "Hey, spirit, God, source, I am ready to connect," as soon as he like sat down, and now information is already coming in for him. And so he's already trying to maybe like understand it a little bit. And he might even be writing down notes. I don't think he actually writes down notes, but I definitely do. So anytime that I am waiting for someone, if I'm on a Zoom call, Zoom reading, I will start writing down things that come. This is exactly what he is doing. So they go ahead and they introduce a few more people that are with her, like a couple of her friends, a couple of her family members. And so we're going to start again.
And it really helps when we have such a unique experience like this. We never know what's really going to happen. It helps to have people with us who are a part of our history. So I'm excited to get to delve in today. And basically, I'll just kind of scribble. I'll communicate everything that comes in. And really, for me, what substantiates a reading is the specifics, the details that are really only known between us and the people who've passed away. And so, very oftentimes, we find that involves family dynamics, inside jokes, people's last words, but sometimes even recent conversations we ourselves have recently had. And that oftentimes will kind of come through. So if that does, don't be surprised. It just kind of validates that they're still with us, that there's an awareness of the things that we do. And it can be really powerful. My goal is just to kind of create a space through these readings where coincidences, meaningful ones, can kind of come through.
Yes.
And if I say something that's particularly resonant, the goal is for it to leave you feeling affirmed so that when you leave this experience, you know at the very least, huh, okay, I can move forward in this direction a little bit more confidently, perhaps from a message. So we'll kind of see where we go. I love all the.
All right, perfect. Right here, he's explaining what to expect as you go into the reading. So now, if you've ever had a reading by me, I always say this. I always ask, hey, have you ever had a reading before? And then you'll answer yes or no. To be honest, it doesn't truly matter what your answer is, right? What I'm trying to do is set you up to have a conversation with me so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable and then we can get into the reading. And then maybe if you've never had a reading before, that can give me a little bit more insight. But basically, I say, hey, have you ever had a reading before? And then you say, yes. I'm like, oh, great. The reason why I ask that is because we all do things differently. So then I talk a little bit about my process. But then if I say, hey, have you ever had a reading before? And the person says no, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I get to be your first one, you know? And then I go into my process. However, I'm in love with Tyler's explanation. Sometimes I don't want to take too much time because I'm already like so ready to go, and information is like bursting at the seams most of the times when I am about to connect with someone. But I love how he explained the coincidences, and there was one more thing that he explained that he's like, this is really really cool. Oh, recent conversations, inside dynamics of the family and specifics. So oftentimes when you're developing psychic medium, you'll want to be like, I want to get names and I want to get the birthdays and I want to get this stuff, but oftentimes skeptics, they don't like that kind of information because they call it Googleable. But there's so many other little things like their personality, how they were, all those things. You can't find that via Google. And that is one of the great things that I love that he says, especially inside jokes or recent conversations, because I have so many times that I've had readings where I'm like, oh, they're bringing up this. They're like, oh my God, that's so crazy. I just thought about that yesterday. One of them that really stands in my mind was one time I had a reading, and I remember right at the end, I was like, oh, and they say, have some wine by the bonfire for me. And she's like, oh my God, I was literally just telling my friends we were going to do that tonight, And I am like, see, exactly. They are around us and they always are trying to show us that they're around. And it's not just about the details that we get, like Tyler said, some specifics, but it's also like the timing, the coincidences of it. Because it's like, if I bring up, let's say I do bring up a month or I bring up a date or something along those lines, and it was like right after we were talking about kids. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, grandpa's granddaughter is getting married, like it's about those things coming in because I got the granddaughter's birthday and then the granddaughter's getting married, so it'd be like, yep, grandpa's trying to say that he's still around. Hopefully that makes sense, but we're going to continue on.
The objects we got. Yeah. Curious fortune. I mean, we got like a lot, and I'll try to make my way to as many as I can today. But show me what you got.
We got support here.
All right, so right now I'm going to fast forward a little bit. What they're doing is Tyler Henry does psychometry. And so what he does is that he picks up an object and he brings in the spirit from the object. All right, so each object that we have, we actually have energy, right? Our energy kind of goes on this object, and some of it actually goes inside of the object, and it can be very porous and it can hold our energy and things like that. Tyler actually uses it in a way to where he's like, okay, maybe this was yours before you passed, and it's going to help me establish a link, basically. And then a link is going to be something that you can use to anchor in that spirit. So it's like, okay, I'm going to use this to anchor in that spirit, because when we spirit psychic mediums, when we call to the other side, we don't know who's going to answer, right? So it's like basic calling a telephone booth is the best way that I can describe it. And you don't know who's going to answer. You might be screaming a name, but someone else wants to come through. And so when you actually have an item from the person, it can help establish that link and that intention. All right. So now instead of just saying, hey, I really, really want to speak to mom, grandma, or whatever like that, you bring the object with you, and then the medium can hold it and then bring in the spirit that way. This is something that Tyler Henry is known for. That is something that I don't like, to be honest. I can't do it as a psychic medium. I remember the very first time I ever tried was me and my mentor actually went to this house, and the woman's son had actually passed inside of the house. And she was like, here is something of his, and she really really wanted us to connect to the item. But the my only problem is that I was like connecting to the item. I'm like, hey, I can tell you, like, where you bought it and how long you've had it, and I can tell you where it's been stored. But to me, that's not how it works for me. And so it does work for Tyler, but it doesn't for me. Now here's a really interesting thing. It's a little bit of a spoiler alert with this. The object that he is holding right now, as you will tell as this reading continues on, I just want to make sure I told you this first. That object that he's holding on to actually does not belong to the person that comes in right now for him. All right, spoiler alert, that object actually belongs to her grandmother that she wants to come in. But that is not who comes in. So let's listen in for a minute.
One object. So,
We wanted to know if someone comes that we don't want to talk to.
Yeah.
Can we say Pat?
send them back into the ether.
We don't want to waste time.
No.
They're questions.
It's a good question, though.
That's true.
It is.
Never mind. Can you go?
All right, so yes, you can get people coming through that the person does not want to talk to. And yeah, that freaking happens. I said you're calling a telephone booth. Now, why does that happen? They need to hear from that person first. They need to heal. There is some reason. I always trust that the person in spirit who's coming through is who needs to be known, needs to say something. I always set the intention before my readings, so you might have in mind that you want to talk to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, but then all of a suddenly cousin Joe comes in, all of a suddenly it's your neighbor, like why in the hell are they coming through? I get it, I know, right? But one time I actually had this reading, and this was years ago. This psychiatrist, or maybe she was a psychologist, maybe she's a psychologist, but she was like, hey, would you mind if I sat in on one of my clients' readings? And I thought this was brilliant, right? Because they do say that psychics are the new therapists. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So she was there kind of in the corner, and she was listening in on the reading. And I thought this was great because this is uncovering years and years worth of things that this woman had bottled up. She didn't mention ways that she was feeling, things that were coming in. In fact, her ex-husband came through. And I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, he had chemotherapy, he had cancer. I think I even got the type of cancer he had. I think I got his name. Like it was no doubt that it was him. And she starts crying. And I was like, okay, you give them a minute or whatnot. But then all of a sudden, like the psychiatrist was like, can we talk to somebody else? Can we talk to someone else? Like she basically went right in front of the camera, and she was like, we need to talk to somebody else, not him. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So apparently, you know, he is off limits. Now you might say like, Heather, that's not right to bring forth someone that someone has trauma with or hasn't dealt with. But this is where there is this gray area, and this is going to be something that you're going to have to think about if you're giving or getting a reading, right? My thing is that when people come to me, they're coming to me because I can be the translator between worlds. So I can translate from spirit and give them your messages. And I will always uphold my ethics, my boundaries. I will always say it like it is. And I will never ever make things up. I will never ever do that. I always have to be real no matter what. I'm almost allergic to being dishonest. And so he's the one that came forward. And I always believe that spirit will bring the spirits forward who need to hear it. But it doesn't mean that you have to listen to all their messages. It does not mean that I have to spend 20, 30 minutes, a whole hour, going ahead and, talking to them. I don't. But the thing is that in this sense, I feel like I work for spirit almost. It's like, like they're my boss and I have to relay their messages. And if they're bringing that person, I at least have to let you know that's who it was. And in this moment, I remember trying to like shake him, basically, like being like, dude, she doesn't want to talk to you. You got to go. And I remember him saying something about, I need to tell her that I'm sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. And I could feel it too. And I know that he was probably a jerk to her and did a lot of things and stuff like that. But I also sensed in the moment that it was an opportunity for healing and she needed to at least I want to say open the door, but crack it open just a little bit, right? And so I did. I completely let him go. I didn't say anything more. You know, as soon as the psychiatrist said, hey, we don't want to talk to him, I was like, okay. And all this happened inside my head with the fighting him and that kind of stuff, being like, you gotta leave, you know? And so I was like, okay, no problem. I was like, before you go, he just says that, he's really, really sorry and he, really does want to talk to you when you're ready. And that's what I said. And so that's how I work because I always say that I work for spirit, and so other mediums and other psychics won't do that. They will be like, okay, is there anything that you don't want to know? Is there anybody that you don't want to come forward and talk to? But the thing is that that's how they roll. That is not how I roll, and that's not how my gifts roll. And so if you are opening up to your gifts, then you can make that determination to see how things come to you. Or if you're a person who is wanting a reading, you can always ask those things before the session. Like, so for example, when you book a session with me, you can write down any notes. I always say I like to know the least amount as possible. I just need your name to connect. That is absolutely it. But if you wanted to put in the notes, being like, hey, there's some people on the other side I don't want to talk to. No problem, no problem. Or just tell me when we're like one on one. Hey, I'll keep that door open. If they come through, like all the evidence that I'm picking up is actually from them, don't worry, I'll tell them the scat, but I'm probably going to get some information on why he's coming forward. Maybe it could be because they want to help you, they want to be your guide, they want to apologize, they want to send you healing, they want to tell you where they, hid some secret stash of money. So I'll be like, oh, heck yeah, like come forward. So let's continue and see what is going on now.
Comes back to you, did you feel some unexpected connections from that we'll kind of talk about? A couple different things. So, Mom, on the way here, I was in the car with you and I was telling you I was getting like a really strong impression. Can you share with me like who I said that would be out?
The uncle thing.
An uncle thing.
Who
What did I say about that? Of his own drum? Beating his own drum. No. She said, so that's
No, I love the uncles. I do.
it's interesting the way this comes across, but it's so random. On the way here, they were having me talk about like for some reason two uncle figures, and one very different than the other as far as how they would have like operated in life. But the interesting thing with that, when we go to there, is there's several men in your family that would have passed away closer to middle age, so 50s, 60s, that kind of thing. Yes.
All right, so this is so great because it is true that on the way to events, spirits will show up. And I'm so glad that he talked to his mom and told his mom because you forget this stuff. I remember my last gallery event, there was somebody hitchhiking in our car in the seat behind me, and I was like, it's somebody's birthday. She came here, she's coming here because she wants to really talk to him. I think it was her dad. And no joke, I totally forgot. I didn't even remember until she came up afterwards and she was like, oh my gosh, it's my birthday. I was hoping my dad would come through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here you go, girl. Book a reading with me. And I gave her a gift certificate and stuff like that. And I'm like, book with me because I completely forgot. And now that's the other thing is it's the uncles. Remember how they're like, hey, has anybody come forward that we don't want to talk to? Can we pass? Those were the two uncles that she did not want to come forward. So it's pretty freaking funny. And now, hear how he says 50s or 60s. Later on in this reading, he'll be like 50s, 60s, 70s. It is really hard sometimes to get ages. And the reason being is like, how old do you think I am? Right? Like, so you have the person's vibe and the person's energy. And sometimes, if you're a medium that gets visions, you might see little visions of what they look like, but sometimes they do it symbolically. And so now you're kind of having to guess and like feel into it. It's like, what would you say I am? Like I'm actually 42, but would you say that I'm 30s, 40s, But hey, my energy is like 20-year-old's energy. So let's keep going and see.
But very different in the way this comes through. I don't know how many brothers there are on that side, but I bring up two of major significance that, for the sake of this reading, I need to highlight. Yeah. There's a sense of one uncle beating to their own drum, and the other one kind of living a little bit more of a traditional life. Okay.
All right, so this is so good so far. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit so we can get some of more of the things besides the uncles that are coming forward.
Drum? Beating his own drum. No.
I love uncles.
It's interesting the way this comes across, but it's so random. On the way here, they were having me talk about like for some reason two uncle figures, and one very different than.
Yeah, so they're keep on going. I didn't fast forward it enough, but they're talking so much about beating to the drum thing. I would actually be like did he play the drums or something? Because I'm like they keep on saying it, so a part of me, my intuition believes like, okay, is there something else here? Did like I keep on getting this drum thing. It's not just a personality thing. I think there's something else that's going on there, but let's see.
Interesting. They'll even refer to like recent conversations we've had. So the fact that this was kind of established, the fact that it's happening, I want to kind of go with.
I kind of fast forward a good part. So what it was, what they just had a conversation saying that they do not want these two uncles to show up, and then basically he shows up. Now, just in case I fast forward the part, remember he is holding on to the object belonging to the grandmother. The grandmother actually lived with these two uncles. Oh, the two uncles lived with the grandmother. So I thought that that was a very, very interesting.
Generationally,
Okay.
some indications of that.
Oh.
And as far as like
Yeah.
a sense of, how we want to give people their flowers when they're here, there's a sense of by you getting a sense of acclaim, it almost is like correcting some feelings that people weren't able to express in the past.
That's
and it comes
interesting.
across like really,
Yeah.
really positive.
Can you tell my grandma I'm gay?
It comes across.
But yeah, she was who wanted me to be named Fortune, and which I consider obviously a very unique name.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
How'd she come up with that?
it's her mother's maiden name.
Oh,
To honor her.
all the time.
Yeah, it's really cool. When she comes across, there's just a kind of overall sense of I need to bring up your mom really fast. Let me figure out where we're going there. Oh. When we talk about the uncles, just from what you know, there's a couple different things. So one within family, obviously LGBT conversations are here. But when they talked, she was bedridden, so I went to say goodbye and told her I was going off to college. Of you, grandparents have a different relationship with their daughters than they do their granddaughters. But there's this sense, though, it's almost like when someone gets to kind of be like grandmother of the century, like in the best way possible. And it's not that it needs to like right any wrongs, but there's this sense of skipping a generation almost in how I'm able to now send you off and give you this necessary love. And she wants it to translate to your mother as well. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. But yeah, it's like the bond.
Yeah.
Kind of as she's bringing up you more as daughter than even your own mother, which I know sounds strange, but it's like singling you out in a really special way. My mom's like, that gives me a sense of you being able to give pride to the family, to the story, and that kind of thing. And it just seems very much like that's my girl. It's funny.
Is she watching?
My mom is for sure watching right now. She still loves you, Mom. Don't worry. Absolutely. I do think Grandma might have just come out though herself. There is a chance she could have been one of those gay ones.
Yeah.
Oh, I think this is
That's what she was saying.
Like, what are you doing?
Okay. A number of these passings are. I have a bunch of different things coming in. One's hitting me. As far as you, the bulk of your people are bringing me to like decades ago. So, but then I have to also highlight some more recent ones that are like coming through in a different sense. So let me see if I can just really quickly, because we will circle back.
Mhm.
When it comes to grandma, I mean, that's my most immediate area of focus. The object that I was holding on to, who did that belong to?
It was hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me as far as there being that connection.
Mhm.
There is an emphasis on most immediate area of focus. So, but then I have to also. Okay. A number of these passings are. I have a bunch of different things coming in. One's hitting me. As far as you, the bulk of your people are bringing me to like decades ago. Okay.
Okay, so now what's happening is Tyler is kind of like focused on trying to get some information coming through and trying to understand it. Meanwhile, they're kind of just talking and jibber jabbering a little bit, which is awesome. Now, here's the thing is that when you are like me, like ADD, this is going to feel like hours of you not saying anything and you might start getting scared, right? Is information not coming through? I can't understand the information that's coming through. Is this accurate information that's coming through? And so you might get kind of scared. And this is the time when you really need to like take a deep breath and just connect to source and not basically drop down into your ego mind, into your imagination part and disconnect from spirit because it can happen. Especially because Tyler has been inside of the Hollywood world, and so he is fine being on stage and stuff like that. But if you are in a gallery reading, if you're doing this like what he's doing right now in front of everybody else, you also have your nerves. You can be getting scared or whatnot. I think that he's totally cool and totally confident. But the thing is that so oftentimes when we're judging other psychic and mediums, we're not giving them the leeway to have to be like, hey, you are human, like you're human. It might take you a minute, and this is also edited a little bit because this was a live reading unedited and now they edited it. So he might even be taking even longer. Now, here's another thing to bring up is that when people are talking during a reading, sometimes that can also, if they're talking too much, it can actually push your energy down a little bit because for me, when energy comes through, it comes through very, very quickly, really fast. I just want to say it. I write down notes and things like that, come back to things that don't make sense or, maybe things that I mistranslated or something along those lines. But basically, I have had people that go ahead and they talk the whole entire reading, which is fine. I'm here for you. Anytime you have any questions or whatever, I'm definitely here. But sometimes it can go ahead and it can make the connection a little bit more weak because then it's almost like you're making me turn off my psychic connection and in that part of the brain and you're making me go over more into my logical brain because now I'm listening to you like active listening. But let's listen a little bit into what's going on right now with Tyler.
No, these passings are a bunch of different things coming in. One's hitting me as far as you, the bulk of your people are bringing me to like decades ago. So, but then I have to also highlight some more recent ones that are like coming through in a different sense. So let me see if I can just really quickly, because we will circle back. When it comes to grandma, I mean, that's my most immediate area of focus. The object that I was holding on to, who did that belong to?
It was hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that does.
Exactly. So now this is where I'm talking about with like the coincidences and when things are brought up in a reading, right? He was like talking about the grandmother and then he was like, "Hey, whose object was it that I was holding?" And she's like, "Oh, it's my grandmother's." Exactly. You might not think that this is a psychic hit, but that is 100% a psychic hit because he was talking about the grandmother and then all of a suddenly he felt connected again to that object. And guess what? He's like, is this, yeah, this is the grandmother's, So that's the exact same way that my readings go. And that's how you'll know that you're on the right track. If you're talking about a certain thing and then all of that information, even if you have to ask about it, it is pertaining to that person. So if I was doing a reading and I'm talking about a grandmother, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, that painting in the background, it's so funny. I just got drawn to that. And they're like, oh, my grandmother painted that. And then it's like, oh, okay, okay, okay. I didn't bring that forward as evidence, but something really drew my attention towards it. So let's see what else he says.
There being that connection, there is an emphasis on um,
You want to hold under
I
that?
think I might, yeah, I might pull back onto that really fast because they're gonna slingshot me in kind of a different direction.
But do you see what happened? It was like he was getting something, he wasn't sure. And then they're like, hey, do you want to hold this object again? Almost like catapulting his abilities again, going ahead and catapulting that link that he has established, right? So you can do this with a external object like Tyler's doing, or you could do it with like your mind and being like, okay, almost like you could tether in your mind that spirit like by the ankle and be like, hey, you're staying with me, baby, like, something along those lines to bring them back in. So So if you're in an in-person reading, what you can do is you can, touch the person's hand. I've done that. I've literally been holding someone's hands with my eyes closed and those kinds of things. So that is completely legit. Love that he brought that up. All right, so now Tyler is holding an envelope. It's another one of those items from a past loved one, and he's scribbling. So he's tuning in now.
So kind of random, but a lot of information is coming in right off the bat. So my symbol that comes through is candle in the wind, and that's always indicative. It's an Elton John song of someone's life being taken kind of before it even gets the chance to fully see itself all the way through. It's usually indicative of someone who would have passed kind of closer to the middle or too soon, too early. How old was this individual?
I'm 52.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, I should have had decades more. The way this comes in, I would want to bring up this feeling of one moment I'm here, one moment I'm not, and they're having me bring up this feeling of I'll call you later. I want to call you because I can't physically be there. There's a sense of a phone call that I want to have, but it doesn't get to get made. Do you know about this? Of like, I'll call you back. Let's talk later, and then it doesn't end up happening.
There was a not a rift, but there was a break, and so maybe
It's like waiting for the call that doesn't come.
eh,
And that's how I would describe it. And on both ends of this, for the individual who is still here, there's the sense of wanting to release, wanting to release, wanting to release. The
All right, so the Elton John song, number one, before he said that it was symbolism, right? So I just want to tell you that he was working with the symbolism. Spirit shows him this, and then it means that because you start getting a shorthand with spirit, because sometimes it could be way too long to try and bring it back up. So you might see a rainbow for LGBTQ, you might see, a penguin for a pastor, that kind of stuff. You might start getting it. I see a collar for a men in uniform, I see sometimes my husband when it's supposed to be for army or whatnot. So those are symbolisms that he's using. And now he's getting like this calling situation. So you see how he's kind of trying to describe with what he's picking up. It's a vibration, it's a vibe that he's getting. It's like the energy. And so when you're first developing, one of the things that would be really helpful is for you to try to explain the feelings that you're getting, not just within a psychic connection or mediumship connection, but also with throughout your day. Because it's like, why do I feel this way? How am I feeling? How can I describe a feeling? Feelings are complex sometimes. And so he's trying to understand it. And then she says, well, kind of, it seems like they had a falling out of sorts and they weren't talking near the end. So I think that that's what that is meaning. It's like, yeah, that call that wasn't made. That's the reason why that he's like, when he responds, he's like, oh yeah, the call that wasn't made. Okay, that makes sense. He's like trying to talk it out. And if you notice too, he also asked like how old he was, right? Because he's like, how old was he? And he's not doing that to fish. He's doing that to be able to be like, wait, okay, does this make sense with the person that I'm getting? Because you have to trust that, psychic and mediums, we have a lot of integrity, right? We have a lot of honesty. We are, loving beings and stuff like that want to create that magic and want to bring forth the best information to prove to you that your loved ones are still here. And so when we say that, it's because we want to kind of tune in a little bit and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. 52 makes sense for this guy. Remember, I told you ages are kind of difficult, but if I would be like, oh, no, like this guy seems like 95 or 92, not 52. And I know that Tyler would have done that. So he's kind of like using that just to kind of like validate himself a little bit and be like, okay, I am on the right track. All right, so that is that. Let's see what else happens.
There's a sense of kind of a bigger understanding or a bigger picture. There is, for some reason, an emphasis on digitalizing things over and over again. When you kind of like electronically compile like a bunch of stuff into one thing.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
Yeah, I had saved a bunch of his voicemails on my phone, and I wanted to make sure I didn't lose them ever.
Yeah.
So I'm not great with technology, and so I moved them to my computer so that they would be there, and then iTunes like changed their program, and they're all gone.
Oh, so sorry.
And I can't get them back.
Yeah, the things that come through are kind of coincidental in nature, but it just comes through like, oh, it happened. It is what it is. It doesn't.
He's not worried about it.
Do you know? Do you know if anybody has a bicycle? Like bicyclists, bicycle symbology there.
Maybe his kids.
Okay. If I were to talk about, so there's three individuals that would be beneath him that I need to.
Okay, so this is a great example, and this kind of happened a couple of times in the previous readings that you and I have not gone over with together. But you just asked about a bicycle, and she's like, "Oh, maybe it's kids," you know? And that's the thing, is that's a hit that didn't land, right? He got something and they can't take it. And this happened quite a few times, well, not quite a few times. If you get too many no's, then it's like, okay, are you connecting? But no, some of these no's are pretty healthy, right? And these no's usually come from, a couple of different reasons. The number one reasons why people get no's, especially like this, is because the person that's sitting right now does not know the answer, right? They do not know it. So this means that they have forgotten it, like psychic amnesia, where it's like they totally just forgot it, or they never had that information. So, like one time I brought forward an aunt that the person didn't know had even passed away, right? Or that they weren't even into whatever it was that I was bringing up. So, maybe they talk about his kids, so maybe his kids had just bought a bicycle, or one of them is getting into becoming a bicyclist and things like that. So, we don't know about that because that's one of the reasons. The other two reasons is going to be that, hey, mistranslated it, didn't actually follow it through because maybe it wasn't a bicycle that he's seen. Maybe it was like a racetrack and he thought it was a bicycle racetrack. So maybe he mistranslated that. Um, and the other third reason is that it's going to be for something in the future, So it could be that, all of a suddenly, she gets home and someone surprises her with a bike. It's those kinds of things. So always say what you're getting, and then he does a perfect job. He just keeps on going on. If it's a no, it's not a no, it's a not right now. That's basically what it is. So if you get something, put it out there. If it doesn't land and the person can't take it, then keep on going on. And then if you're a person getting a reading too, if everything was always 100% bang on, just mind blowing, then guess what? There would be no doubt that psychic and mediumship abilities exist, right? It is not an exact science. We are doing our best translating between worlds. You think it's bad or hard, translating between different languages? Just imagine how hard it is translating between worlds. So give us a little break. And I absolutely love that Tyler did this. Earlier on in this reading, too, he got like the name Duke and they didn't understand it, and a couple of other things. That is the reality of it. However, I also feel that's also the magic of it. So that means that they can go ahead and get off the airplane or wherever they're flying and find these little mini magic moments where the name Duke comes up. Maybe it's going to be a Duke monkey, like so a monkey named Duke that's riding a freaking bicycle. Like that'd be so cool. It leaves the door open for really cool things. In fact, I remember I had done a reading with this woman that was years ago, but I'll never forget because I kept on seeing a freckled redhead boy. And I'm pretty sure like she didn't want any more kids or it didn't make sense to her. Maybe she couldn't have kids or whatever, but I just kept on seeing this. But she didn't really care that much because all she really cared about was her job situation. And so, I had given her the insight about her situation and she went with the job that Spirit said was the best for her. And as she opens up the door to her first job, she opens up the door because it's at like a doctor's office, and out jumps a little redhead freckled boy. And she's like, as soon as I seen him, I knew that's exactly what it meant in my reading. And I was like, yes, exactly. So even if you can't take the information, if you're someone getting a reading, then going ahead and being like, oh, okay, maybe this is something to look out for later on. I always tell this story about how I was seeing a Abraham Lincoln. And then I was like, I don't know why I'm seeing Abraham Lincoln. And it was for myself. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting down at a restaurant and I look up and bam, there's the Abraham Lincoln photo and painting right there on the wall. And so I'm like, okay, everything happens for a reason. So even things that don't land are just not landing yet. Okay, so if you notice right now, he said something and they could not take it, right? They were like, oh, bikes, I don't really know about that. And so that's going to happen. right? And this could be happening for a few different reasons. It could be happening because, yeah, they don't know. It's psychic amnesia. Maybe they forgot. It could also be that it's going to be something that happens in the future where it's like, oh, okay, it's not about a bike now, but maybe one of his kids are about to buy a bike. Or maybe it's one of his kids have just bought a bike, but they're not understanding it. Maybe it could be too that he mistranslated it. Maybe it was because he saw like a bike track and he thought it was about the bike, but it's not. It's about the bike track. It's about a track. It's about a car that was near the bike that he saw in his vision. And so every time that you get like a no, think of it not as a no, but like a not right now. And the same thing that if you are a person that is getting a reading and things are not landing, always take it with you because it could make sense later on. One thing that always comes up for me is this time that I did a reading and I kept on seeing a redhead freckled boy and she could not take it and she didn't want any more kids and things like that. Maybe she couldn't even have kids, but she was just really focused on her job. But I kept on seeing a redhead freckled boy. And so she went ahead and she accepted a job offer, that spirit was like, yep, this is the one for you. And her first day at the job was a doctor's office and she opened up the door. And as soon as she opened up the door, out jumped a redhead little boy right in front of her that was in the doctor's office. And she was like, oh my gosh, I instantly knew that I'm exactly where I needed to be. So definitely absolutely loving that Tyler is bringing that up, and a couple of times within this reading he has gotten a few things that didn't quite stick, and I think that is perfect because that is the reality. If everything was 100% all of the time, like yes, it was just one amazing hit after another, then no one would ever doubt psychic and mediums. We are human, so we can mistranslate. Things can get a little bit wonky and wrong. Sometimes talking with spirit is like talking through an invisible person that you're trying to play charades with. And sometimes it's not easy, right? And especially if you think about it this way, Tyler has so much pressure on him right now. He has a zillion people that are looking at him and hanging at every word, including the cameramen, interns, whatever, who's ever else behind the camera, what lighting people, all these people in production that's going into this. But the thing is that he's been doing this for so long, he has that confidence within himself. But not even just that, but you have a confidence within spirit that things that are coming forward for a reason. So it's like, all right, take what doesn't and then see if it makes sense later on.
Right, but how many kids does he have?
I'm not sure if that he would,
With this, he keeps showing me my symbol for number one dad.
but the end is it's kind of murky. I don't know if I should say, but there were some things that we're not quite sure. But
Yeah, the way that this comes across is he gives me the sense of people kind of saying goodbye or being able to have a last instance, but it's not in the exact moment that I pass. So think before. There's this feeling of this ends up being the last time we see each other, people leave, and then I die. And there's this feeling when we talk about the timing of this, the timing seems kind of unusual of when he actually would have passed.
yeah, yeah.
Do you know if there were any conversations around liver at all? As I know, pancreas was a thing, but do you know if there was any like liver or kidney problems?
Yeah, well, I know it's spread.
Okay, gotcha. When he comes across with this, he keeps showing me my symbol for number one dad that comes in. So I think there might be a mug or something that says this in some way.
Okay, yeah, he really, really loved his kids.
I feel that in the way this comes in. Do you know what?
But do you see how he's saying his symbolism? For number one dad, he has that symbolism. And now, if it was in a one-on-one reading, he might go a little bit more into that as well, being like, yeah, he really loved his kids. Because it might seem like, oh, just a number one dad thing, but he's number one. He's telling her that, hey, I was a dad. I was a really, really freaking good dad, within that one little piece of evidence. And then with him, Tyler saying afterwards, I wonder if there's like a number one dad, mug or something. Now, this is something that one of his kids might have. They might cherish it. They might drink out of it every morning, and she doesn't know about it. So it can be really, really cool what you can find out after the reading.
Have you ever did any coaching or anything?
Yes, he did his daughter's
yeah.
softball.
I feel like I'm the dad.
Uh-huh.
Gonna be the coach, and I'm also keeping an eye on you. It's like one of those things.
100%.
But
That's Chris.
and he also jokes with her as she gets prettier, you're gonna need a big baseball bat to fend off the boys. So there's a
I
funniness
can't
with
wait to
this.
tell her that.
So he's very, very protective and very at ease.
Yeah.
And you need to know there's just this sense of
Mom says no twerking.
No twerking.
Come up with a different dance.
Oh, you know what? I'll do the robot. How I feel sometimes. All right, let me give this a scribble. We'll just kind of see where we go. There is a few things that pop in. So, woo, when we talk about family, I'm just gonna kind of get this all up, all right?
And we're sisters, so this
Amazing.
is both our.
Yeah. So I'll highlight within family. If we were to talk about like 4 siblings connected in a family, where would that be? So a family.
Here we go.
4.
Not knowing this was the question. You were just trying to.
Okay.
4.
So if
Is
one
that
person
dad's
is
and?
one of 4, or if like dad's side.
Dad is 2, mom's 3. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh no.
Oh.
Is there 4 on? Oh, our cousins. Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm.
Cool. What side of family is that?
That's our father's
Dad's side. It's gonna sound a little strange, but I'm seeing a hairbrush of all things. Connected to her. This is odd, but sometimes if someone kept a hairbrush, kept hair
Research
just
part of that.
Very
Mhm.
cool. Very, very.
That's for our nana.
Oh, I
yeah.
love it.
My mom. Yeah.
See if some of these details kind of connect and fit later on. But by and large, it looks really positive.
Jillian, you also brought objects, right?
Yes.
Tyler, do you want to hold those?
Just
Great.
give it a shot.
Quite great.
Some
More gold.
more gold.
More gold. From Vegas.
Sweet. I love that. And these are connected to the same person as far as these.
Those 2 are from the same person. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
gotcha. Just always like to make
Yes.
sure. Just that. Okay, so this one's giving me a little bit of a different feeling. Yeah, the whole group of people that are popping in, oddly enough, just through these objects. There's an acknowledgement of 2 coming through as 1 with these. So this is going to sound strange, but even though we're holding other objects belong to 1 person, 2 people are coming through this object. So it's like the pair, the duo. I don't know why. There is an emphasis when we talk about being given a gift. So, for example, not really how it could be done in this case, but that's usually just kind of non-traditional ways of future family members, and that comes across really positive.
Yeah.
And then just good to keep in mind, they just show me my symbol for sobriety within family, and it's usually indicative that if somebody was kind of like on the cusp and then got sober, it just kind of comes through as when you pat someone on the back with that. So just kind of good to keep that in mind. And the men in the family, I feel like cards very close to the chest, so this kind of comes in as a lot of information, but a lot of pride there. And then just remember that I'm saying this. There's some significance as it relates to him to a holiday that will end up being meaningful.
Okay, now check this out. I'm gonna let this play for a moment, but it is definitely a really cool like learning experience, and just watch it. Just listen in.
Moment every day.
We literally look at the clock every day at 10:10. That's when he passes, and we say hi to him and stuff. But I don't know holiday.
Yeah, and the holiday aspect comes in as kind of like sentimental. When did he actually pass? What day do you know?
Right now, Tyler is hearing and feeling that the dad's birthday of this girl that he's reading, corresponds to a holiday, and they can't take it, right? They're like, not really, we see 10:10, that's the time that he's passed, but nothing really with when he passed, right? But Tyler's like feeling into it, and you notice he's not letting this go. He's going to start asking questions because he knows that there's something there, and he's trying to figure out what it is. So he's going to be asking them a few questions right now to try and figure it out.
June 20. I always say 26th, and then I'm told I'm wrong. Mom? 28.
When is Father's Day, out of curiosity?
Oh, yes. So the month of June is Father's Day, his birthday,
Got it.
my parents' anniversary, and the day that he passed.
So it's a lot of.
June has always been hard.
A lot of significance.
Yeah.
I suspect it's kind of acknowledging.
But do you see where he was going with this? He could not stop like thinking like, okay, no, there's something else about his day that he passed. There's something to do more with June. And it's like, oh yeah, June was Father's Day, their anniversary. Like there's so much that is going on. And so he's like, okay, yep, he's making sure that like he's on, his intuition's on, and that kind of thing. And now he's going to start closing up the reading.
So it's happy and hard. We try to do birthdays are good, and
Yeah. Kind of like personal holidays that are both happy, bittersweet.
Yeah.
And that just kind of comes around his passing. So please know they'll continue to be there, and I look forward to getting to talk again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
Of course, absolutely.
That was so amazing. Thank you, Tyler. Oh my gosh, you pulled up with so fast.
Talked to all the people we wanted.
Yeah. Didn't want to.
Sorry, my uncles wouldn't shut up.
Fortune, thank you so much. And thank
Yes, and so that is it. That is his reading. And so the same thing happens when I close up, though. At the end of the reading, though, a lot of times I'll tell you, I'll be like, hey, your loved ones are not staying with me, they're hanging out with you. So feel free to like talk to them, anything else that you need. They're not staying here with me, but I'm releasing them back to you. And then, of course, I always keep, the dialogue open, just like how he did too. He's like, I hope that we can talk again soon. And I absolutely love it. So, and at the end too, if you notice, they said, "Wow, that went by fast." Yes, psychic and mediumship readings go by super duper fast, especially for I guess both of us, right? The person who's getting the reading and giving the reading. But for me, it comes in so quickly that sometimes I look down at the clock and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like it's so nuts. So, I hope that you really enjoyed this. I hope that it gave you a little bit of behind the scenes with how this works, the dynamics and that kind of thing. Let me know if you want me to like do one of my own readings. I'll kind of critique one of my own readings, and then be like, hey, this is what I should have said. This is what I was getting. This is what I was picking up. But this is what happened, because I think that'd be a lot of fun. But I really think that you should watch the show. I think it's really amazing. Life from the Other Side with Tyler Henry. It is on Netflix. I will try to leave some links in the show notes below. But thank you for coming and hanging out with me. Oh. Alrighty, so I hope that you have loved hearing this. I love how Tyler ended his reading. I do like the same thing, except for I'm like, hey, I release your loved ones back to you. And with Lisa with Love and Light, they're not hanging out with me anymore. I always keep that dialogue open, kind of like what Tyler did, how he was like, I can't wait to talk again. And I do the exact same thing. And I think that that is a really sweet way to like end the reading and being like, hey, time went by super fast. Just like the host said, she was like, yeah, it went by super duper fast. And I think it goes fast on both ends because I am giving out the information, which is just so quick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that 15, 20 minutes went by. And then the same thing with you, who's probably sitting or whatever, getting a reading. And then you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. That's the reason why it's always really important to go ahead and record it because you can take notes and stuff like that, but so oftentimes you're going to forget about some of those things. But I always tell everyone who gets a reading with me is that whatever like really resonates with you and you remember in that moment after the reading, like sit with that, sit with everything, and then give me a day or two to give you your replay. But it's not just about giving me time to give you the replay, but it also talks about time for you to digest everything that was said. All right. Hey, I think it'd be fun to even go ahead and do this with one of my readings. Like that would be really fun to tell you like, oh, this is what I was thinking, this is what I was feeling, and all those kinds of things. And this is what I should have said and could have said. Like I think that'd be a lot of fun. So let me know if you want me to do that. But check the show notes because I think that Life from the Other Side with Tyler Henry is a really cool show for you to watch. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope that it fucking works.